Hello, hello. Let me check this is running. There we are. There we are. All right, well, we read the Sandcastles blog, the first one, on Farmkind. And this second blog has come highly recommended as well. It's a long one. We're in for a big read. We'll see if I get it all done today. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I've got some old opinion pieces here from Farmkind or about Farmkind. Oh, whoops. Oh, really? They do a paywall on Vox now? That sucks. Well, I guess we're not reading that one then. Hey, Master Roach, how's it going? Nice to see you. Yeah, this is an opinion piece by Tom Norman back in March of last year. So I might give that a read. But I'm mainly going to kick on. Well, I guess I won't give this a read. I'm mainly going to kick on with the Sandcastles blog, and then I might watch Natalie Fulton on the MBA course later on. All right, let's get started. Just finishing work. Nice, nice. Well, that's kind of late, isn't it? I guess it depends where you are. All right, vegans are monks. We need a role for lay people. Veganism isn't scaling, but a two-tiered movement could. In this post, with meat consumption skyrocketing and rates of veganism stagnant, strategies focused on individual veganism appear to offer only limited potential for animal advocates. The small fraction who are vegan act as a symbolic vanguard, living out our vision for a world without animal exploitation. They also serve as the movement's crucial activist base. I can tell I'm going to like this already. We must find a way to expand the movement beyond the small vegan population without alienating our most dedicated supporters. Yes, that is a key bit of that. And I guess that the Farmkind campaign has, for many people, rubbed them the wrong way, for many vegans. So it will be kind of interesting to see, presumably most of Farmkind's donations previously were coming from at least vegan sympathizers. I guess that they've done the offsetting thing for a while, but this has probably limited the number of vegans who are going to want to give to Farmkind in the future, I would guess. So that's the without alienating our most dedicated supporters part. The solution is to treat vegans as a priestly class, an elite cadre making a deep personal commitment to live out transformational values on behalf of a wider community and deserving the utmost respect. Based. True. To achieve this, we must let go of the idea that veganism is for everyone. We must offer a low-commitment way for animal lovers to align themselves with the vegan movement. Let go of the idea that veganism is for everyone. Okay, interesting. That's going to be controversial for some people. This is, I suppose, with strategy in mind as to how we can most efficiently and effectively prevent suffering, right? Prevent rights violations. FarmKind's offset framing is the most general solution yet proposed, and it matches a rich historical precedent, the relationship between priestly monastic elites and the lay communities that support them. All right, Sandcastles, lay it on me. I've heard these two blogs. I bet his traffic has been through the roof because these two blogs have been both very highly recommended. Several people have said, "Oh, you must go and read this." Yeah, fair play to this person for being on the ball in covering this, and you know, on the money as well, as far as I can tell. He's been pretty good commentary. My mum told me it's wrong to eat veal, but she eats other meat and dairy. Yeah, there's a similar thing with like foie gras, for example. I always say that as an example of something that is quite easy for the average carnist to disavow, right? Because in reality, no one really eats foie gras. It's something that no one, you know, maybe 1% of the population ever eats. In the UK, anyway. It's also necessarily cruel in a way that people can imagine other animal products might not be. And it's also sort of associated with rich people, which, like, do you know what I mean? Like, people wouldn't mind distancing themselves from foie gras. I think it's mainly because nobody is personally implicated, right? It becomes a whole cognitive dissonance and motivated reasoning thing when your own consumption is implicated. Yeah. Easy to disavow veal, easy to disavow foie gras. I'm sure there's some others in that category as well. Narrator voice, okay. All right, we'll do it. We'll commit. Previously on Sandcastles. That was pretty good, no? We saw how FarmKind... I'm not going to keep doing it. We saw how FarmKind's campaign telling people to forget veganism and donate to effective animal charities instead set off a firestorm of constructive debate among animal activists. Very nice framing. And yeah, I agree. There has been a hell of a lot of constructive debate on this. It's been some great discourse. IMHO. Today I'm going to dig into what I suspect are the deepest questions dividing responses to the campaign. Veganism presents an unsolved puzzle for the animal movement. In 3 decades of vegan advocacy, rates of veganism have grown only very slowly, plateauing around 1 to 4% in all but a couple of countries. Yeah, that's accurate. We just did a Veganism Around the World report, and the only country where it does get higher than that is India, which also happens to be the most populous country, which is kind of cool. There, I think we had it was definitely well into the double digits, vegetarians and vegans. I want to say that vegans were even like almost 10% in that. So this is from an existing survey. Look at that, 9% vegan. They had Mexico also at 9% vegan. We surveyed these countries. We actually had 14% vegan in India, plus 26% vegetarian. And similar to the previous survey on that point, yeah, Mexico is the biggest difference. We're 1% and less than 1%. They had 9 and 19%. I don't know how that got to be so different. But yeah, based India, 14% vegan plus 26% vegetarian. But yeah, as he says, everything else, every other country, less than 5%, except for this outlier, which I'm not believing that one. We had them way lower. Meanwhile, total per capita meat consumption has increased sharply. Total and per capita meat consumption have increased sharply across rich and poor countries alike. With a few notable exceptions, only vegans are willing to dedicate their careers or free time into campaigning for farmed animals. Vegan 2.0s. Or I guess he's saying campaigning, so this is going to build to donations as a convenient lifestyle solution, basically, which they're not, right? I think a lot of people poo-poo donations because it seems too easy in some ways. As if there's some sort of laziness baked into the notion that you can just kind of delegate the hard work to somebody else and, just do your direct debit and not think about it anymore. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how I handle most things that I want to get done. Right, if I can have professional come and do whatever, then it saves me having to do it, right? Why would I not treat activism the same way? It's going to be done more consistently than if I was just trying to do it myself whenever I felt let's say cleaning, for example, right? If you hire a cleaner, your cleaning is going to be done more consistently than you would do it if you just had to do it under your own steam. It's going to be done probably better, frankly, right? And you're not going to have to spend your time doing it. So it's going to have better outcomes for the thing, and it's going to happen regardless of whether you're sort of thinking about it and spending time on it. I would absolutely treat animal activism the same way. The most reliable thing that you're going to probably do is set up regular donations to animal charities. Because unless you go and cancel them, your regular donation will carry on happening. Whereas for the other things, posting or doing Fast Action Network or doing any other kind of advocacy, you got to kind of stay motivated, right? So you will only do as much as it occurs to you to do it, as much as you have time that week or whatever it may be. Like, there's always, life gets in the way, right? But donations, when it's a regular thing, you won't miss the money as well. You'll just be used to having this much, right? We have a movement of vegans. Even incremental welfare campaigns can be accurately described as part of the vegan movement, given how many of the people working on those campaigns are vegan. Yeah, I guess so. If you're being pernickety about this, you could say that the vegan movement has to relate to doing vegan stuff, because if a bunch of vegans go on holiday together, the holiday's not part of the vegan movement. But whatever, that's being very pedantic. Yes, most of other people in my community have said this. Most of the welfare campaigns and organisations are staffed, like, almost entirely by vegans, in fact. My wife and I have been donating about $50 a month to different sanctuaries and homeless shelters. Based, Master Age, good for you. That's awesome. I think is a real sign of character to choose to be giving away your money when you don't have to be, basically, right, for the good of others. I think that is really a sign of character. And thank you for sharing as well. Some people are very, like, shy about sharing their giving, or think that it's, self-aggrandizing or something like that. But I think it's really important to normalize and inspire others to do it. I give, a few £100s a month to, mainly to the Effective Altruism Animal Welfare Fund. I also give to FarmKind, and I also give to a few others as well. New Harvest, which is a cellular agriculture charity making cultivated meat. Who else? Animal Justice Project, which I spoke to Claire Palmer. Hey, Tristan, how's it going? Nice to see you. Been appreciating your energy, Tristan. Who else? I think there's another couple that I'm forgetting as well. I think I give to the Vegan Society, and you know what? I just signed up today to give to Veganuary as well. We're going to have some good Veganuary content coming, actually. I don't want to give away too much at this stage. People in the Discord know. Thank you, Tristan. I appreciate you. That's awesome, man. I'm not gonna lie, it's really, really nice to have regulars who come in chat and come in the comments and comment encouraging things. Like, it's very much a sign to keep going when you start doing something like this, right? To know that there's people out there enjoying it and finding it useful and being inspired to do things for animals. It's like, that's a really cool feeling, honestly. So yeah, thank you for sharing. With the frustratingly slow rate at which veganism has spread, many of us would like to expand our movement beyond vegans. If we only welcome vegans to advocate for animals, we're limiting ourselves to a tiny fraction of society. Yeah, that's what I said in my video. You could say, well, everyone can go vegan, so we're not excluding anyone, but that just brings us back to square one. Everyone could go vegan, but they aren't, and we aren't succeeding in convincing them. Attempts to welcome non-vegans into the movement have been mixed. On the one hand, there are some real success stories. Communities Against Factory Farms is right now organising hundreds of rural UK citizens to object to new factory farm developments on the basis of harm to local communities, environments, and yes, animal cruelty. In England in the 1990s and Australia in the 2010s, thousands of omnivores joined dramatic direct action campaigns against live exports motivated purely by animal cruelty. The Communities Against Factory Farming stuff is awesome, by the way. They've succeeded in getting so many factory farms rejected. Hey, Stephen, nice to see you. Thank you, man. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did a video about the first one of these that happened, which I think was in Norwich. But I feel like there's been at least a dozen since that I've seen. Let's have a look. Factory farm. Oh, whoops. Factory farm rejected. Planning permission. So Norfolk, 11th of August 2025. I think that is the one that I was thinking of. North Norfolk District Council. And then June 2025. This is to overturn planning permission for, yeah, okay, so this is the River Severn. This is in Wales, I believe, in June. July, then River Action. Yes, this is also. And then, wow, West Berkshire Council. That's Newbury. That's also August 2025. So there's like 3 in the space of 3 months already. Puppy farm plans denied. September last year. Shropshire, do we already see Shropshire? Also June 2025. So they're getting, look at this, 200,000 birds. They're all similar size. Massive, massive new factory farms that didn't get built. That's crazy. I wonder how much they're spending, because that's got to be pretty good return. Cranswick mega plans farm rejected. Kings Lynn, that's the one that I was thinking of. So that's another one, April 2025. I'm sure there's a time. I wonder if there's a timeline of these. Timeline. Maybe we could make one, hey. Well, it won't be very good content to make it, but I will make it and share it with you guys. You know, I'm tempted to do a little ChatGPT agent to see if that can't do it while we're reading this. let's give it a go. Oh, whoops. I want to dox all my work stuff there. Okay, so what do we want to happen? We're going to say build a spreadsheet of the factory farms which have had planning permission rejected in the UK in the last year, we'll say. Columns should include date, say region, number of animals proposed, I guess we'll say. What else? Link to news story. All right, we'll see if that works. All right. Sorry, tangents. Tangents, that is. But yes, Communities Against Factory Farming, that's what set me off there. They're based, and, you know, if you're in the UK, especially if you live rurally in the UK, then, you know, go and sign up. Elsewhere, however, the strength of vegan identity has served to repel non-vegans from advocacy. True. This is a danger. In my early years with Direct Action Everywhere, we tried to avoid talking about individual diet change and instead focused on systems change and total animal liberation. But when omnivores occasionally found their way to our events, they felt profoundly out of place and didn't come back. This pattern held more recently during a citywide campaign to ban slaughterhouses with pro-animal future. People could have cared about pollution, worker abuses, or a slew of other issues, but in practice it was only vegans who got involved. Yeah, that does seem to be a issue, and I get, they're going to say that this is part of the Farmkind theory of change to be explicitly expanding beyond the small percentage of people who are vegans to get them into doing, being part of the animal movement. And that was something that Tom really stressed in his interview with David Rams. He didn't really frame it as just, I've got it framed and have been saying generating resources for the movement. But Tom was definitely thinking of it in terms of being a part of the animal movement. So I think, both of those things could be true, but it's just interesting, like, where the emphasis is, because I think there probably is a bit of moral consistency effect implied in that theory of change, right? Once you get them doing the donating, it may become easier in the future to get them doing the petitions or whatever else. That was a big part of, I can remember my PhD supervisor telling me something like that about recycling, that it was meant to be a bit of a stepping stone environmental practice and a gateway environmental practice, right? You start recycling, next thing you know, you get an electric car. Recycling, bro, that's a slippery slope. Gotta be careful with that shit, man. That's how I started out recycling. Now I'm vegan 2.0. Vegans joined in part because it was so exciting to be surrounded by other vegans. When the occasional stray omnivore wandered into one of our events, it was only a matter of time before another volunteer would casually ask them how long they'd been vegan. Awkwardness ensued, and the omnivore never came back. This was despite daily reminders to our activists that this campaign wasn't about veganism. Nobody was being deliberately exclusionary. It was just the natural next question they wanted to ask. Yeah, that is very much like the norm at vegan events. There's a big, important, central norm that it could be easily violated. And like very evidently violated as well if someone were to be eating meat at one of these events. Vegans join activist groups in part because they're so gratifying to be around people who share your conviction that what the world is doing to animals is unacceptable. It's the experience of finally finding your people. Every highly dedicated activist I know shares this experience. Sharing in the strict commitment of veganism is probably essential to the cohesion of the movement's activist core. Yet that same strict cohesion alienates us from the rest of society. Surveys find that while people are sympathetic to farmed animals, they regard vegans with a disdain reserved for drug addicts, cockroaches, and worst of all, Congress. Efforts to expand our base seem almost inevitably to run up against that cohesion, as the farm kind controversy shows. Yeah. Okay, so they're saying it's important for the activist core to be vegan because it's a very important part of the identity and for group cohesion, but it's also limiting if that's the sort of cost of entry, that's how I've been thinking of it. If there are, I mean, it seems to me really good news that there is stuff that people can do to help animals that's both way more helpful and way easier than going vegan. As I say in my video about it, it's harder than we tend to think for the average person. Ascending to the priesthood. Okay. It's very, positive framing for the vegans who might be not agreeing with it at this point. I confess, reader, I have been deeply skeptical of veganism as a vehicle for animal liberation. I have at times even wished that we could get rid of veganism altogether. For a period of time, DXE friends and I started ironically self-identifying as post-vegan, which entailed thinking of all the ways our lifestyle fell short of pure veganism and emphasising those to try to bring us closer to the omnivorous masses. One of these friends, Paul Picklesheimer, testified during a criminal trial for Open Rescue that he isn't vegan because he enjoys watching Game of Thrones and the actors ride horses on screen. The exasperated prosecutor went point by point, confirming that Paul doesn't eat meat or dairy or wear leather or wool. The exchange was hilarious to DXE's activists, but I'm not sure it gained him much credibility with the jury. Paul and I even used to fantasize about holding an annual event at the Barclay Animal Rights Centre where DXE's leadership would all choke down a Big Mac live on Facebook. On the one hand, this story is meant to show just how much we wanted to break the animal rights movement out of its fetish for personal purity. On the other hand, we could never actually bring ourselves to do it. Yeah, I mean, purity is the word, isn't it? That I think I've said this in Vegan 2.0 videos. It's going to be unattainable at the margin, or like in practice. Medicine containing a little bit of milk powder and leather suits in the Uber. I watched my Vegan 2.0 the video the other day, so I remember all the all the examples. But yeah, the more of that stuff that you try to cut out, the less additional impact for more additional effort there is. So the marginal impact on helping animals of being extremely pure as a vegan, right, is diminishing. Whereas Vegan 2.0 is not the case. I'm really pleased that this discourse has been provoked, because I do think that people need to wake up to the fact that there's way more important stuff that we can do to help animals. Don't know the perfect, but the enemy of good. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's it. It's just, yeah. Another thing that I said in my Vegan 2.0 video, it's like trying to lose weight by obsessively counting calories all the time and then discovering exercise. And now there's something that you can proactively do rather than just like try to avoid a little bit more. Yeah, I think that would have been a rogue one, hey. Wanted to get the DXE leaders choking down a Big Mac live on Facebook. Despite vegans' insistence to the contrary, the omnivorous public sees veganism as a major personal sacrifice. But why does that perception of sacrifice lead to an adversarial dynamic? After all, there are plenty of cultures where a small minority takes on an extreme personal commitment and, rather than being rejected as antisocial fundamentalists, are embraced as an elite cadre living out the full ideals of the community. I accidentally bought vitamin D the other day in a gel capsule. Is that not vegan? I haven't heard that one before. The clearest example is priests and monks. In both Catholic and Buddhist countries, while a majority of the population might actively practice the religion, there's a special role for those who are called to truly dedicate their lives to it. Priests and monks in both traditions take vows of celibacy and live cloistered, rigidly structured lives that can make military discipline seem mild by comparison. Far from inspiring resentment or mistrust, the piety of religious mendicants is celebrated by the wider community, who donate alms in exchange for a fraction of the ineffable spiritual merit that the monks accumulate through their diligent practice. Most people say they love animals, at least in Western countries. Surveys consistently find they are horrified by the common practices of factory farming. When I had a chance to dig deeper by interviewing meat eaters in my research at Pax Fauna, I found that common feelings about animal slaughter were even more tormented than these surveys let on. The ordinary meat eaters I spoke to said it required deliberate effort for them to avoid thinking about where meat comes from. Yeah, that's interesting. I think most people are just not exactly right, trying to avoid thinking about it. They are actively avoiding thinking about the implications, and that's kind of easy to do for most people, I think. That's why I've always said it, as a vegan activist, your role is to amplify that dissonance that people are feeling and make them feel more uncomfortable with their behaviour. Sometimes vegans get the idea that it's bad to give people cognitive dissonance, and that you shouldn't show slaughterhouse footage because it's going to make people have cognitive dissonance, and then they'll make up excuses. But that's only half the story, right? Yes, that is one common way that people deal with dissonance, but another way to deal with it is to go vegan and stop having animal products, right? I'm sure that every vegan can remember a time when they felt cognitive dissonance, where they had been convinced of reasons why they ought to be vegan but hadn't done it yet and were still eating animal products. And it seems true. I can remember having this subjective experience. I was kind of studying this stuff at the time. But just that feeling of amplified dissonance until you kind of have to do something about it. So yeah, I think that our role as activists is to increase dissonance to the point where people feel they have to do something about it, basically. Hey, already vegan. Not even vegetarian, real. Oh, gelatin. Yeah, I see. A lot of vitamin D comes from lanolin from sheep wool, and you can get vegan gel caps. Huh. I do learn a lot from chat, I do. I was thinking about this earlier. It's quite... it's a ton of people have sent good, useful links, mentioned analogies for the exact thing that I'm talking about, right? It's good having a chat. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty marginal, Steve, and that's the nice thing about Vegan 2.0 as well. You don't have to sweat the small stuff like that. If you are saving so many animals on the other side, it's literally a fraction of an animal implicated at most in the non-vegan gel, vitamin D gel or whatever it is. True, Bretta. Like the stream, everyone. I appreciate that. Nice to see you. Vegans are simply living out these values to their natural conclusion, the way that monks and nuns live out Catholic and Buddhist teachings that everyone in their community subscribes to in principle. So why do vegans provoke ire when monastics inspire admiration? I think the difference is obvious. Monks and lay people exhibit a symbiotic relationship. A small priestly elite leans on the financial support of a wider lay community. Nobody expects the lay people will all someday don the robes, but they take comfort in the spiritual example set by the monks. Is this going to go on to argue that non-vegans should be like paying for vegans' lives? I'm up for that. I'm up for that if so. This stands in stark contrast to veganism, in which the general public rightly feels that our goal is to get them to adopt the same personal commitment we've taken, and that we see them as moral lepers as long as they fail to do so. Well, yeah, I guess. Pardon me. Yeah, priests are not trying to get everyone to become priests, right? People hate vegans because our mere existence puts them on the defensive. This is not altogether fair. While vegans sometimes, rightly, advocate for the correctness of our position, just as often the omnivores shoot first, then crack jokes about pushy vegans. Very true. We can gripe about this injustice, or we can think about how to respond to it strategically. What did you all think expanding the movement beyond veganism meant? Vibes? Blog posts? Expanding our strategy beyond veganism does not mean giving up the goal of a vegan world. In a vegan world, nobody would be vegan. The term would be meaningless if the choice to eat tortured animals wasn't available or default. The question is how we get there. My research at Pax Fauna convinced me that veganism will not be the vehicle that delivers us to animal liberation. For one, it asks too much sacrifice of individuals who care a little bit, but not that much. People know that the main sacrifice is social rather than culinary. They're less worried about what they would eat and more about how inconvenient it would be to have limited options when eating out with friends, how their friends and family would tease them, and how it would complicate family dinners at the holidays. Sure enough, these are the explanations most commonly offered by recidivist vegans. We know what that's going to link to, don't we? That's got to be the Faunalytics thing. Oh, it's not even. It's a Pax Fauna thing. By Aiden Kankyoku. This is the guy with the blog. Well, we won't read that, but cool to know that there is another study on ex-vegans, I guess. Plato also argued that vegetarianism should be expected of philosophers but not lay people. Really? Ah, that's cool. Is that true? Is that so? Huh. I mean, we are pretty sick, aren't we? We are pretty sick, aren't we? Let's be honest. In other words, pardon me. In other words, veganism is only a sacrifice if you do it alone. If the whole world went vegan, being vegan would be easy, as our study participants often pointed out. But until then, there's not much we can do to make it less socially costly. Many of them expressed vague support for the idea of a vegan world, and even said that they'd be willing to take small actions to bring that world about, but veganism was too much to ask. After 2 years of research involving hundreds of hours of interviews and focus groups, this was the biggest question we left unanswered. To my great frustration, what small, meaningful steps can we offer people to align their actions with the animal movement, short of going vegan? All right. I see why people have been recommending this to me. It's going to be a Vegan 2.0 blog. Let's wake up a little bit. One option is reducitarianism. In this theory, as Brian Capeman has pointed out, getting one person to reduce their consumption from 5 animals a week to 1 spares twice as many animals as getting a person who eats 2 animals a week to go vegan. True, but while I wish the best for efforts promoting reducitarianism, I'm doubtful behaviour change reframed in these terms actually stick. Yeah, that's also my concern with reducitarianism, flexitarianism. I mean, obviously, it's good if people are eating less meat on aggregate, but it always feels way too flexible when people say that. I'm always a little bit suspicious how much they're actually doing. Um, Sometimes I'm sure people are saying to me, "Oh, I'm eating less meat these days," and they're kind of vaguely remembering a vegetarian curry they had like 2 months ago. Do you know what I mean? You ever get that feeling? I'm like, "Oh yeah, what's the last vegan meal you had? Yeah, prove it. Do a poo right now. Prove it." The surveys I've reviewed suggest that people's actual meat consumption and changes therein have little to do with whether they self identify as intending to reduce meat for reasons to do with psychological laziness. People don't track the amount of meat they eat throughout the week, making it all too easy to convince yourself you've made a bigger reduction than you have. Yeah, he said it without poo, but sometimes welfareism seems counterproductive to veganism. Um, I don't know. I don't know about that. What I've seen is that it is going to increase the price of animal products. That's a major thing. Um, and then that is, a function, or yeah, I guess a factor in how many people are therefore going to buy them and how many animals are going to be farmed. But they also seem to be a good thing from a public opinion perspective as well, because it generates news coverage. If it generates news coverage that's like pig farms are going to stop caging pigs for weeks on end, although a vegan might worry, oh, people are going to think they're treated well now and therefore it's okay to eat them. I think most people are just not thinking about it. I'm trying to avoid thinking about it, right? And seeing that headline is a reminder this is going on, or just a prompt to go and think about it, basically. There is some evidence that news coverage of welfare reforms, in fact, reduces animal product consumption. So that's like aside from the supply curve going up thing that I always talk about. VPM was commenting on one of my shorts, saying show some evidence about the welfare reducing the number of animals farmed, which is a very fair request. So I'm going to have a look into that. There was a page that I had looked at years ago on that. Yeah, I'll go into that for a video, I suppose, or for a short maybe. A second option is to engage people as voters. This excites me much more, and indeed, this was the strategy I opted for. Pax Fauna's research directly led us to launch Pro Animal Future. PAF citizen initiatives ask voters to think about what kind of world they want to create collectively, rather than asking individuals to make a big sacrifice alone. In our first campaign, 36% of voters in Denver, Colorado, USA, voted to ban slaughterhouses in the city. We fell short of the 50% needed to pass, but that's dramatically more than the perhaps 3 to 5% of Denverites who are vegan. I'm excited to see the movement double down on reaching the public as voters. However, voting only happens one day a year. Yeah, well, not even, right? How can we engage people the other 364 days? Not to mention in jurisdictions that don't allow for direct ballot initiatives. Yeah, I've always thought voting sucks as a method for making change. Like, realistically, in the grand scheme of things, right? Obviously, you should vote, but for most people, you're not in a swing seat, and so your vote's kind of inconsequential. Now, I have actually for a few years lived in swing seats, and that's been quite good fun. Or at least, I feel like my vote matters. My current constituency where I live went from the Tories to Labour, and my MP is a vegan, and she's based. And my former constituency went from Tories to Lib Dem when I was living there. That was in Bath. I don't think that lady's a vegan, but she's quite based. Your grandma lives in Denver and didn't vote to ban slaughterhouses. Oh, I'm sorry, Master Roach. 36%, not bad, not bad. I mean, I do wonder with stuff like this. Presumably, this means there's just going to be slaughterhouses slightly outside the city, or there's going to be, right, you're still going to be able to buy meat there. There is a vegetarian town in India. Vegetarian town in India. Where it's literally illegal to buy animal products. Yeah, here it is. Welcome to Palitana, world's first vegetarian city in India's Gujarat. And this was, I believe, monks on a hunger strike. Yeah. Ban was implemented. Around 200 Jain monks protested by going on a hunger strike to show the government that they prefer to die than letting animal slaughter and consumption allowed in the area. The monks demanded to get all 250 butcher shops to be shut down, and the state government was forced to do so. Thus, the city was declared a meat-free zone. However, dairy products are still allowed, and people in the city consume milk, ghee, butter, etc. Isn't that crazy? 2014. That's so cool, isn't it? Hey, Rebecca, good to see you. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Master H, about the fur. I'm not quite sure how that works. Yeah, I guess they would just do it outside of the city, Rebecca. They'd do it in the suburbs. I'm not sure how much that would achieve, to be honest. I don't know. Presumably there's some reason why they made this the target of the ballot anyway. I'm excited to see the movement double down on reaching the public as voters. Oh, we already read this. Yeah, so what do you do the other 364 days a year? Yeah, so voting is cringe. That's my analysis. No, I'm joking. Obviously, you should vote, but it's like so fucking low down the list of impactful stuff that you can do, realistically. FarmKind has put forward the best solution they've seen yet. Offset the impact of your meat consumption with a donation to the movement. Consider some of the strengths of offsetting it as an incremental step towards joining the animal movement. It scales to match a person's commitment level. Veganism is seen by proponents and opponents alike as all or nothing, and reducitarianism is often a mirage. An offset is concrete, but it can be large or small as the donor's passion for the cause and can grow alongside same. It makes a real difference for animals. Just as enough people going vegan ripples up the supply chain to cause farmers to breed fewer animals, enough people donating enables new effective campaigns, not just for welfare reforms, but for institutional diet change programs that have proven far more effective at reducing animal consumption. FarmKind redirects donations to both welfare and institutional diet change efforts. Ah, okay, that's another good thing to note. So, I have been saying that it's not really diet change initiatives that they do. I guess it's more accurate to say that it's not individual diet change initiatives. But institutional diet change initiatives, they're like getting, hospitals to adopt default vegan meals and stuff like that. That makes sense that would be more effective because you can affect many more meals for the same amount of people persuaded, basically. And it's easier to make the institutional case as well than it is to make, I guess, the individual case for the food that you ought to be eating from now on, right? It's like the food that your workplace ought to be serving from now on is far less resistance going to come up, I imagine. And yeah, it's going to affect far more animals as well. Yeah, chat's lit tonight. Yeah, kind of agreed, Rebecca. And most will put them under pressure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, multiple angles of pressure seems like it's probably a good thing. List of voters who are against animal slaughter. Yeah, true. Hey, Wes. Nice to see you. True, Master Rich. Yeah, the food pyramid stuff's pretty wacky. Oh, sorry about that, Crawsoul. For example, donating to FarmCoin help 10 animals. How's this better than not breeding one? Or would they have to help 20, etc.? Yeah, so with the FarmKind calculations, they use basically like quality adjusted life years. So the idea is that it's X% worse conditions. The idea is that there's basically enough welfare that could be increased across a high number that would offset one slaughter, essentially, right? There's like a trolley problem where you have the one guy getting killed or like 5 people getting their legs chopped off, for example. And in health economics, they try and do those quality adjusted life years, which is based on what people, I think it's based on what people, how much people say they would have paid to not have given diseases, basically. So yeah, yeah. You put a price on everything like that. It mirrors the historical precedent. Alms and tithes are precisely the ways the Buddhist and Catholic laity have supported their monks, admiring their discipline from a safe distance. Yeah, a tithe to vegans. That's what we need. No, tithe to animals, basically, isn't it? This is what FarmKind's proposing in this analogy. Man, I really hope that they raise a lot of money. I don't know at all how the campaign is going. I have spoken to the FarmKind guys. You know, I knew all of them to some extent before this all went down. And I have spoken to them a little bit during the campaign, but I have not asked them how much they've raised or how much they're aiming to raise. I must say, if I can try and talk to one of them on the channel, I think they should be down. I did ask them that. I think they've just been crazy busy. They got bigger channels to go on. I'm going to come and talk to you, half a dozen in chat. No, we did numbers on the Patrick Gracer off debate. I think we had about 40, 50 people in chat at that point. That was crazy. I've got a good drop coming this week as well that's going to do numbers for the channel. Consider yourselves in on the ground floor if you're watching now, I'm telling you. I genuinely don't know my number of real subs because I paid for ads at the start. Now I've just got a load of like basically empty accounts on there. So it says 12 or nearly 13,000 now, but in real terms, I think I'm like a 4K sub guy, maybe. But I got a video coming this week that's going to do numbers, trust me. A foot in the door. You know how long this is, by the way? Look how small this little scroller is. See how long this is? I don't think we'll read this all today. A foot in the door. In the research literature on persuasion, a small step like offsetting is known as a foot in the door. Humans exhibit a bias towards consistency, meaning that one thing we consider when deciding how to act is consistency with our past actions. That means that if you can convince someone to take a small action consistent with your philosophy now, it'll be easier to convince them to take bigger actions later. Yeah, so this is what I've been saying on this. They're framing this as a moral licensing thing, where you're doing an offset, right? So you are going to do your donations to the animal charities, and that's going to sort of give you the permission to carry on eating meat. But I think that there's a decent chance that once people start doing the donations, exactly as he's saying here, when you're thinking about when you come around again to thinking about whether you should go vegetarian or go vegan, you're going to have that as something that you already do, and some bias towards being consistent with that, right? One of the main concerns raised by critics of Farm Kind's Forget Veganuary campaign is that if we tell people to donate instead of going vegan, they'll become complacent, feeling that their donation absolves them of guilt for eating meat. My strong intuition from years of sociological research is that this will not happen. If anything, I expect the opposite. People who align their actions with us in small ways, like donating, will be far more likely to drift towards our mindset over time. But will it lead them all the way to veganism? To be honest, I doubt it. I think it's more likely that promoting offsets will have no impact on rates of veganism, mainly because practically nothing has, at least not in a durable way. Giving alms doesn't lead most people to become monks, but neither does it discourage them from becoming monks. Some people will become monks, and most won't. Disparage not those holy few. Depending on your mood when reading the data, the growth of veganism has been slow or altogether stagnant. But this does not mean that veganism and the vegan movement have not played a crucial role in advancing animal advocacy. Virtually the entire farmed animal advocacy movement is composed of vegans. For most people, even very altruistic people, dedicating your life to farmed animals while eating farmed animals is simply too much of a contradiction. Sooner or later, people stop doing one or the other. While we can't know for sure, I shudder to think how much worse a position farmed animal advocacy might be in if there were no movement for veganism. Perhaps animal consumption would have increased even faster. Worse, perhaps there would be no cadre of fanatics obsessed with winning change for animals at any cost. Perhaps the closest thing to farmed animal advocates would be the non-vegan EAs in our timeline, who might pay lip service to factory farming as an important cause, but would prefer to see even fewer resources directed towards it, and who wouldn't think twice about serving factory-farmed meat at their conferences, because fretting about that would be too low impact to be worth their time. It might just be my contrarian streak, but despite my own long history of questioning veganism and fretting about the ways it alienates us from the mainstream, I can't shed the feeling lately that the movement has overcorrected. I don't object to Forget Veganuary, which was a calculated decision to land media coverage in right-wing outlets, but I wince when I see strategists regard veganism with something approaching disdain, even among allies. Take this line from Lewis Bollard in his very friendly appearance on the Dwarkesh podcast. It seems so obvious that you can have far larger scale change at the level of governmental change and corporate change. Instead, we get fixated about whether someone is completely vegan or vegetarian. I think what happened is that when people started learning about the issue initially, it was just a few people and they felt totally powerless to achieve larger scale change. They understandably focused on themselves. Then it started to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It started to become an end in itself, where it was about personal purity as much as about the impact that you're having on the issue. By the way, I'm thinking of Humane Hancock's veganism doesn't actually matter here. This is what he meant. This is what this is what he came to tell us. Humane Hancock came to give us the prophecy. That was my first cooking or cooked video. It's much easier to measure your own personal purity than it is to measure your total impact on reforming factory farming. It just became this kind of inward focus. The good news is that has changed tremendously in the last decade. The movement has gone from being one that was obsessed with personal purity, obsessed with dietary choices, to one that is much more obsessed with impact. True. And we've seen the rate of cage-free eggs going skyrocketing up like a big steep hill in the last 10 years. On one hand, I basically agree with everything Lewis said, and yet I can't help but read this as throwing shade at vegans and vegan advocates for being obsessed with personal purity. Now, Lewis has received more than his fair share of shade from abolitionist activists, so it would be fully his prerogative to respond in kind. But I'm fairly certain that wasn't his intention. Even especially given his own words in defence of Veganuary last week. I think we should have a very high bar for attacking well-meaning people doing good in the world, whether vegans, EAs, organ donors, aid workers, or long-termists. Lewis' intent on Dwarkesh was clearly to invite non-vegan listeners into the animal movement, but in a more subtle way than Farmkind, he's demonstrated the zeitgeist in the movement that takes for granted how the price of admitting non-vegans is belittling veganism. And I'm not even saying that assumption is wrong, at least not in the present. At Pax Fauna, I was reminded daily of just how far we have to bend over backwards to avoid triggering defensive reactions from non-vegans. My experience exactly matches what Tom Norman from Farmkind said in defence of his campaign. When we start talking about factory farming, the script in people's minds is that you've started talking about this, now you're going to ask me to change my diet. And so they've already stopped listening to us. We used to get comments about, I'm not going to go vegan, I love bacon too much, on videos where we weren't even talking about veganism at all. There's a lot of people out there where to reach them, we have to make it explicitly clear that we're not asking them to go vegan. If we had said you could do both, people wouldn't have heard anything that we were saying. True. Well, this is their theory of the Forget Veganuary anyway, right? It's like this heavy anti-vegan signalling so that they can really break through that barrier and hopefully access the resources behind it. I had a yo-yo loach growing up, and I didn't know about loaches until Humane Hancock's video. I'm not sure if I know about loaches. What is that? Still, I can't help but think that past social movements probably haven't gotten very far by dunking on their most committed followers. Describing vegans as obsessed with personal purity comes across as mean, even if it's true. And it is true. Even I am guilty of standing in Japanese grocery stores trying to research whether some trace ingredient written in obscure kanji is animal-derived, even though I know every minute spent on things like this is a waste of time and energy that would be far better spent working on any form of animal advocacy. That is so true. Yeah, I think purity is like the right framing. Just describing vegans being obsessed with purity comes across as mean, even if it's true, and it is true. Yeah, it kind of does come across as mean, even if it's true, right? It makes it sound like something either not worth it at the margin, or very much about oneself. I think that's what it comes down to, right? If you're obsessed with the personal purity of I must never have any animal products, it's not really about me, right? It's about what's the net impact of my life on animals. It's about animals, and yeah, the personal purity. Yeah, exactly. As I've always said, there's diminishing returns, right? That's why it's much more gratifying to be focused on the net impact on animals and on effective activism and effective donations. So hard to find vegan wine. You either support animal abuse or you don't, IMO. I agree, it can be taken too far in some cases. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it as well, the perspective that I don't want to be the perpetrator of this. I just keep thinking of it as a trolley problem and not pulling the lever being like symmetrical to pulling the lever in a sense. It's assumed that if you don't pull the lever, then you haven't caused any of it, but you could have very easily done something to prevent it is very, very similar to causing it. Now, of course, you can do both, right? We're really in a trolley problem where we can just stop the trolley for free if you both go vegan and go vegan 2.0. The classic argument in favour of this kind of purity is that it puts you in a strong moral position to argue from, but it's not at all obvious that arguing from this moral high ground makes us more persuasive. On the contrary, most evidence finds people react negatively to vegan messengers and lower their guard when they learn that the advocate they're speaking with is a fellow meat eater. Efforts to overcome vegetarian-induced dissonance among meat eaters. The study articulated a range of mechanisms by which meat eaters reduce dissonance. These mechanisms were applied to explain omnivores' reactions to vegetarians. It was hypothesized that vegetarians would increase dissonance among meat eaters. This dissonance would be reduced in whatever way possible. 5 experiments showed that meat eaters reacted to vegetarians by reducing dissonance. Do you know, this Hank Rothgerber bloke is one of the OGs of this kind of research, and one of the only people in this category who I haven't met at this point. I think he might be in Australia. Well, I'm not going to read this now, but the point here is that meat eaters, when faced with vegetarians, have increased dissonance, and they're motivated to try and reduce it. I did just say a minute ago that that's not necessarily a bad thing, though, didn't I? But in this context, they're saying that you'll have less defensive reactions from an advocate who is also a meat eater. Yeah, I can believe that's the case. I don't know if FarmCoin have any meat eaters on their team. I guess that's the point of the influencers. They had to have meat eaters as the messengers, but they're not the staff at FarmKind, right? But while being vegan probably doesn't make you more persuasive to non-vegans, that doesn't mean the value of a vegan movement can be reduced to the number of animals they would have otherwise consumed. Uh-oh. I'm sympathetic to the feeling that something more is lost. Virtually every activist I know remembers their transition to veganism as a pivotal point in their life, a transformation that rippled across their entire identity and led directly to where they are now. Well, that's a nice sort of poetic turn of phrase. A transformation that rippled across their entire identity. Isn't that poetic? Hey, Crossal, if the FarmCoin calculation means one animal helped equals one animal not bred in terms of value as above, then I've calculated that Veganuary campaign is 430x more cost efficient than at doing this than FarmKind. Really? I'll be up for taking a look at that. I don't think... Oh, wait, sorry. One animal helped equal to one animal not bred. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they're saying that if... I mean, we express it in terms of animals helped or animals saved, but it's a bit of a blunt instrument, really. A lot of the assessments of this sort of thing use like days of suffering, or maybe sentience weighted days of suffering. So the idea is that you could reduce days of, either time or severity of suffering to some extent. So I don't think that they're saying like one chicken out of a cage is as good as one chicken never being born into the system in the first place. It's like some fraction as good. But I'd definitely be interested in taking a look at your reasoning on that, Crossall. Yeah, I spoke to some of the Veganuary team in a recorded interview that I'm going to drop this week. It's a little bit low key at the moment, but we're going to drop that this week, and I do think that Veganuary is like one of the most impactful things in terms of diet change, and also there's things beyond diet change that Veganuary has achieved as well. So there's like some percentage of vegans who are Veganuary vegans, right, including myself, by the way. But then there's also the whole impact on corporate supply chains, like supermarkets doing experimental vegan foods in January, increased media coverage of veganism in January. There's a bunch of things that are, outside of that. Veganuary 2.0, right? Like Animal Advocacy Month. I think that's a sick idea, personally. Not to toot my own horn, but I think Veganuary 2.0 is banging. I'd really like it to be a norm in the future that vegans in January are like, I'm going to do activism this month, right? It's Veganuary 2.0. If you're already a vegan, you don't really get to participate in Veganuary, which is a shame. But you can participate in Veganuary 2.0. I think we get a hell of a lot done, and if all of the people who are vegans were doing just like a little bit of activism for 1 month of the year and maybe beyond, who knows? I think that'd be pretty cool. Right, where are we up to? Here we are. The utilitarian logic Lewis appealed to when talking to Dwarkesh, focusing on your total impact on reforming factory farming rather than your own habits, probably doesn't resonate with the average person. Utilitarianism is an esoteric moral philosophy, probably less frequent among the general population than veganism. Really? There's more vegans than there is utilitarians? Surely not. Well, what do philosophers believe? That's not the general population. Oh. Okay, there's a survey of philosophers. This is another one. That's wild. That's wild if true. All right, I'm not seeing like another survey. This all seems to be from the same survey. But okay, interesting. Not very many people are utilitarians, that's the claim. Or like not to this extent, I suppose. This just seems like such a sensible position. Okay, let's go, Castle. This better be good. When you take their income per their report, divide by participants, account for the drop-off rate after January per a Vegconomist article. 25% remain... Pardon me. 25% remain vegan after January, 81% on the remaining cut consumption in half. Yeah, I've heard, yes. Many people are saying this. Then use your 147 animals per year figure. The result is 976 animals per dollar donated. Oh, I see. Okay. That's cool. Wow, okay, that's crazy. So you've done number of Veganuary participants, which they report, and then we've said that 25% of them are going to remain vegan, and that 81% cut the consumption in half. And then based on 147 animals a year, the result is 976 animals per dollar donated. That's crazy. Do you have that in a Google Sheet or something, Krasel? Dude, if you put... Yeah, I mean, you might have done this already, but if you have those numbers in a Google Sheet, just with a link to where they're from. Oh, hey, let's see how our ChatGPT agent's doing. We set a little agent on the go a minute ago to do the spreadsheet of factory farm rejections. It's worked. This looks kind of cool. There's only 5 rows though, so I guess we actually came across most of them earlier, hey. I want to show this, but if I put it over here, it's going to dox all my other ChatGPT things. Oh, close sidebar. Okay, nice. So this is the ChatGPT agent we had going to look for the factory farms that had been rejected in the last year. How do we actually open this? Here it is. So April, one was rejected in Norfolk with 870,000 chickens, 14,000 pigs. 870,000 chickens, can that be right? There's so many animals, nearly 1 million animals on this one farm that was rejected back in April. Then we've got the Shropshire one. 200,000 chickens. Norfolk in August and Berkshire in August. Were these two on the same day? That's pretty crazy. Yeah, it was. Two on the same day, look. 310,000 chickens and 32,000 egg-laying hens. And then Staffordshire, Shropshire border. That was just recently, just in December, a month ago. 70,000 chickens. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it might be a long. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it might be a longer list than this. We were googling it and going, "Oh, look at this." We must have seen most of them just in the Google News results there. But this was pretty cool. The setting the agent to do that. You never can quite trust it if it's got everything, if it's found them all. I would want to check that really, but there we go. What's going on in chat? Cressel, I bloody do appreciate that a lot, by the way, and I would love to have a look at those numbers. That makes sense, like the method that you've described. You've got the funding for Veganuary, and then you've got the number of people taking part, the percentage of those who are staying vegan, the number of animals not eaten per year by all of those people. And I guess you could do it for 1/12 of that 147 animals per year. So it's going to be like 11 animals per year, or 12, oh, it's about 12 animals per year, wouldn't it? For people who only do January and then eat meat the other 11 months of the year. But yeah, like you say, most participants go on to reduce quite a lot anyway. Don't think most people here in Canada have even heard of Veganuary, really. Alright, we've got a ways to go. See, Veganuary says they've had over 20 million participants. Wow. But if the actual number were only 1 million, wouldn't no one be able to notice? From a donor perspective, the metrics seem impossible to verify. Well, one problem that Veganuary has is that a lot of people will do Veganuary conceptually without going to sign up to the website. So their brand sort of got away from them, right? And people, they, I think, get signed up about 10% of the people who actually take part if you go by sign-ups versus survey responses. About 1 in 10 people who do Veganuary actually go and tell them about it. 50,000 chickens in like one shed, so 1 million is 20 sheds. Seems plausible that's a mega farm. Fuck yeah, I guess. Or hellscape, rather. True. Damn, 50,000 in one shed. Is that really the going rate? The vast majority of people make their decisions according to vague virtue ethical framework, that is, focusing on themselves and what actions would make them a good person or otherwise be consistent with their image of themselves. These folk ethics undergird the relationship between priests and lay people. The common folk want a shortcut to be aligned with the good, to participate in righteousness with minimal personal sacrifice. This is the logic that will make offset campaigns most compelling. Not this is more effective than veganism, but this is the easy way for you to get on the right side of history. Yeah, I definitely agree. We need some like low cost of entry way for people to contribute, right? We're just not going to get anything from 95% of people. That's not feasible. We're not going to be able to do anything then, are we? And now, you know, a lot of commentators have said, rightly so, that you do actually need people to change the diet as well, right? You do, if you want to move towards a vegan world, you do actually need people to be going vegan eventually. Um, and yeah, the donating as an effective offset is definitely a time-bound strategy. It only works at the moment because almost nobody does it, and so there's very like low-hanging fruit in terms of the opportunities to help animals for cheap, basically. Um, Grassroots veganism is the only aspect of our movement that presently warrants the term. Folk ethics explain why veganism has spread as far as it has. After all, while we wish it was more widespread, 3% of the population of a country being vegan is extraordinary. Most would-be cultural trends never come anywhere close to that level of popularity, especially trends as costly to participants as veganism. Most formal vegan advocacy strategies have a near zero effect on the population level rate of veganism. Yet that rate has stayed steady or slowly increased, seemingly all on its own. This shows the power of an informal, genuinely grassroots movement for veganism spreading through internet forums and the friend networks of ordinary people. This stands in stark contrast to the formally organised industry sometimes known as the farmed animal advocacy movement, which has at this point become an astroturf phenomenon that would collapse tomorrow in the absence of philanthropic funding. Anecdotally, the vast majority of animal activists I know attribute their veganism to online message boards or random friends rather than formal vegan advocacy efforts. If any philanthropically backed activity played a role in their journey, it was a documentary like Cowspiracy or Dominion, not a vegan leaflet, street outreacher, or social media ad. I'd like to see a link. Oh, he does say anecdotally. Yeah, what's the big survey that I often look at? The big vegan survey, VOMAD Life survey. I think it's called VOMAD Life Vegan Survey. Yeah, here it is. This is from 2019. I wish there was a newer one than this, but this has some really good numbers. I think it's about 12,000 vegans surveyed in this. And this is the graph, right? What was the first thing that made you seriously consider going vegan? Even if it didn't make you go vegan yet. Okay, I guess that's a bit of a different question. What's the first thing that made you really think about it? The most common answer at 22% is documentaries. Then conversation with a friend or family member, we've got second. Video on the internet, aside from a full-length documentary. Posts on social media. There we go, right? Underrated. 13%. So, yeah, the social media posting and talking to friends and family is very much worth it because you've got here 30% of vegans who say that that was their initial influence. Either social media posts or conversations with friends and family. So that's the sharing more. That's the sharing more in Vegan 2.0. We have, you know, funding the charities is a really good idea, and you can sort of professionalize the whole thing and have it be efficient and you know, people focused on particular jobs and so on. But as a real person who is part of other people's lives, right, you have much more influence on them than random posts on social media from other people, or yeah, sometimes from the professional advocacy organizations. Messy spreadsheet posted in Discord. Love that. Love that. Thank you. I'll have a look. Well, I guess I might not look at it now because it's a bit too spreadsheety, but you know, I will take a look at that. Thank you, Grassel. I appreciate that. That's big if true. That's very big if true. I'll need to have a think about that methodology. I'll have a look at it in more detail and think if there's anything missing, but yeah, big if true. I must be able to credit you as well. I can't just say it's Crass Alpha on my YouTube chat. you have to email me. I could just say that. Let me read this middle bit again because I was a bit struck by this. It says stark contrast formally organised industry, sometimes known as the farmed animal advocacy movement, which at this point has become an astroturf phenomenon that will collapse tomorrow in the absence of philanthropic funding. When they say astroturf, doesn't that... I thought that normally means literally fake accounts, like bots. It's possible they're referring to like the low effort posting that we do in Fast Animal Network, Fast Action Network. Yeah, true, Oppenheimer. That's getting pretty old now. Damn, 2019, 7 years ago. Guess I'm Monk. This organic quality of veganism strikes me as incredibly precious. It's only in the last 15 years or so that substantial philanthropic resources have poured into farmed animal advocacy, and it's still only a tiny fraction of what goes towards dogs and cats. If the money dried up, corporate welfare and institutional menu campaigns would mostly disappear. But the vegan movement, including vast grassroots vegan advocacy groups like Anonymous for the Voiceless, would churn along. When I see things like the Forget Veganuary campaign, I don't worry about the feelings of grassroots vegan activists. First of all, these people are anything but thin-skinned. They face daily abuse far beyond what farmkind could ever throw at them. But more importantly, this movement isn't about their feelings, as they'll be the first to point out. True. But I do worry about alienating the true rank and file of our movement, the millions of vegans who have no connection to any organisation. I worry how the principled vegetarians among Dwarkesh's audience, blissfully ignorant of the diet change debate raging amongst professional animal advocates, will feel hearing a leader of the movement brush off their precious pro-animal identity as inept and puritanical. I worry, I admit, that putting too hard on the wrong thread could cause this beautiful organic movement to unravel. How's my live reading? I feel like I'm getting better. Reading out loud's harder than you think, right? I feel like I'm getting slicker at it the more I do long readings on stream. How's my reading? Questioning the strictness of veganism might be that thread. Research by Lawrence Iannacone, goodness knows how to pronounce that, building on Dean Kelly, much easier name, argues that strict commitment is a causal feature of strongly bound communities. Strict commitment is a causal feature of strongly bound communities. So saying that communities would tend to be closer if they all share some, big sacrifice or something like that. When a group demands distinctive dress, dietary restrictions, or behavioural sacrifices, it filters out free riders, leaving only true believers. The remaining members, knowing everyone around them has paid the price of admission, participate more enthusiastically. The costs make the group more valuable to those who remain. Yeah, that's very true. This is very true. I mean, yeah, vegan communities do be like this, right? You feel very strongly identifying with that and superior to outsiders and all the classic like group dynamic, what would you say? Group think, maybe. Group dynamic, group psychology dynamics, that's what I'm trying to say. The parallel to veganism is striking. Iannacone's research quantitatively demonstrates that members of stricter religious denominations attend more services, contribute more money, form closer ties with fellow members, and report stronger identification with their faith, but have fewer ties outside the group. Yes. Yeah, the long-term vegans tend to be very much embedded in vegan communities. And he's saying that the lack of that community membership is what causes a lot of people to leave, to stop being vegan. But then it's, the more you are in vegan spaces and identifying strongly with vegan and only spending time with other vegans, fewer ties outside the group, right? I remember thinking this as well when I first became vegan, like, oh, I've got kind of an advantage over, long-time vegans who have been this way for a long time and all their other friends are vegans, because I have a lot of non-vegan friends that I might be able to persuade, whereas if you've been in the movement for a long time, you don't. I still have a lot of non-vegan friends, so I guess I'm kind of been that effective with it. I say that a lot of people have gone vegetarian or I guess some people have gone vegan from knowing me. Mostly vegetarians. I find that people have who have told me that I've influenced them. This is precisely the trade-off animal advocates face. Veganism creates an intensely committed core, but that same commitment creates barriers to expanding the movement's reach. The question for animal advocates isn't whether to abandon strictness, but how to maintain a committed core while building bridges to a broader constituency. The solution is the monastic layperson dichotomy modelled by religious traditions, where strict personal commitment is celebrated in a few rather than demanded of or disparaged by everyone. Gandhi and gorillas. We're doing okay, by the way. We've read more than half of this. Fair play to this bloke, by the way. Very good writing, and also has written loads on this within about a week of it happening. This is the second long and good blog post that we've read from this guy on this topic. There's like a few commentators on this who are almost just waiting for it to happen. It must be reassuring for the FarmKind team when they're getting a lot of hate from the rest of the in-group to have a few people who are like, I think they're onto something here. I admire their minerals, honestly. Like, there would have been huge pressure on all of those people to drop it and move away from it. I mean, they got rid of the Forget Veganuary website. You've still got can'tgiveupmeat.com. We might I think we'll probably send that to people on Veganuary 2.0 soon. To be fair, this guy uses an insane amount of AI, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this is LLM prompting. Oh, really? Okay, interesting. Yeah, not bad necessarily. Yeah. This two-tiered solution for social movement membership found one of its strongest advocates in Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's struggle was geopolitical in scale, stirring the world's most populous country to cast off the yoke of its most powerful empire. Yet at the core of this movement, Gandhi situated an elite cadre that never made up much more than 1% of Indian society. Like any good priestly class, Gandhi's most devoted followers were set aside by dress, diet, and personal purity. There's not really any dress in the vegan movement, right? We don't have like a uniform. A lot of us do be wearing plain black, I feel, myself included. I guess there are restrictions on what one wears, rather than prescriptions. Well, I guess there's a prescription to not wear the restricted things, but there's no uniform as such. Maybe we need one. One staple of the movement was khadi, traditional hand-spun Indian textiles. Khadi clothing was both a clear visual marker of movement identity and an active economic protest, forsaking mass-produced British imports in favour of more expensive indigenous produce. Boycotting British industry was one of the costly Swadeshi folk vows taken by Gandhi's most devoted followers. Other vows included withdrawing from all British Raj institutions, including enrolment in government schools and forsaking government employment, often the highest paid work available, vegetarianism and sobriety, spending time daily hand-spinning khadi thread on a charkha. Wow, that does sound long. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get many people signing up to do that, are you? So massive personal sacrifices, boycotts of both jobs and products, vegetarianism, sobriety, and spending time on a spinning wheel. So were these strict adherents of Swadeshi ostracized by the Indian populace? Of course not. Rather, they functioned as a respected vanguard, supported by the patronage and admiration of the masses as they travelled from village to village promoting the nationalist cause. Gandhi's followers blurred the lines between a priesthood and a guerrilla movement, and the latter is also a useful metaphor for veganism. In his classic study of guerrilla strategy, The War of the Flea, Robert Tabor explains how guerrilla revolutions that started out numbering in the dozens have been able to defeat full-scale regular militaries, by way of a small, highly dedicated cadre surviving off the patronage of a sympathetic rural population into which they can dissolve and reappear at will. So we need to be able to blend in with the non-vegans, huh? I guess the analogy is not perfect. As with monks, the goal of an insurgency is never to recruit the entire population into active armed struggle. Instead, a small guerrilla force takes on the lion's share of personal sacrifice and risk. Living in caves or tunnels and armed with only improvised weapons, they wage hit-and-run warfare on high-tech militaries, while the general population discreetly provides food, fuel, and misdirection. If we accept this metaphor, the key lesson is that the close relationship between the guerrillas and the general public. Counterinsurgency efforts fail most spectacularly, Tabor shows, when the occupying force treats the guerrillas as the main problem, rather than merely the most dramatic expression of widespread popular discontent. At the same time, the guerrillas' primary aim is to sharpen and encourage that discontent, to raise the level of revolutionary anticipation and then of popular participation to the crisis point at which the revolution becomes general throughout the country and the people in their masses carry out the final task, the destruction of the existing order. The success of the guerrilla hinges on the support of the general population. If the guerrillas legitimately reflect the popular will, their victory is an eventuality. If not, it is practically unattainable. As things stand, a movement framed in terms of veganism is being rejected by the masses like an alien virus. There is no question that we must reinvent ourselves. The question is whether veganism fits in the reinvented version of the animal movement at all, and what role the ordinary passive supporter can play. Show me the evidence. There are some empirically testable assumptions in all this. Let's give them a critical examination. Hypothesis 1. Ordinary meat eaters see donating to animal charities as a more incremental ask than going vegan, and there are a meaningful number of non-vegans that would be willing to donate. Hypothesis 2. Positively mentioning diet change makes people less likely to donate, necessitating anti-vegan messaging. Hypothesis 3. A message that explicitly presents donating as a substitute for diet change does not make people less likely to go vegan. Hypothesis 4. Veganism is stagnating and is unattainable for all but a small fraction of the public. A brand new study shed some light on the first three questions. A survey experiment from Rethink Priorities comparing public attitudes towards donating and diet change. Individual studies like this should provide only modest updates to our beliefs, but if they're designed carefully, they're usually better than pure intuition. The Rethink survey finds, in line with common sense, that most people see donating as a significantly easier action than going vegan, and respondents who had never done either before were significantly more open to donating. This supports H1. There is a substantial audience who aren't close to going vegan but would be willing to offset. H2, however, is contradicted by the Rethink survey. Comparing one message that only described donating as a powerful way to oppose factory farming to a second that explicitly set it apart from glowing plant-based, respondents who saw the first message versus the second scored it more compelling. Okay, interesting. So they're saying they found it more compelling in the message that didn't explicitly set it apart from going plant-based. Okay, fair enough. So that would cut against the farm kind theory. The effect was statistically significant but very slight. However, it's at least enough to say that in this survey, a message contrasting donations with diet change was not more effective. Yeah. This evidence is much weaker. First, in messaging studies like this that test only one version of each message, it's impossible to know if the effect was due to the variable you care about or due to some other variation in the message. Perhaps a different version of the anti-vegan message would have performed better. Indeed, the message tested by Rethink Priorities was much milder in its critique of veganism than the Forget Veganuary campaign. Yeah, a guy on my team's always making this point. We get these studies that are like, comparing animal messages to environmental messages, for example. But in one study is usually just comparing one animal message versus one environmental message. So you'd need several studies to say that more generally, or a study with several different that compares several different messages, right? Moreover, this kind of survey only measures one part of the equation determining the impact of a message. In one of my favourite recent articles, Ben Tapin explains how the simple formula for message impact is persuasiveness multiplied by reach. That is, if message A is half as persuasive as message B, but goes viral and is seen by 100 times as many people, and it has a 50 times greater impact. Ben points out that the persuasiveness of different messages tend to vary only modestly, but their reach varies dramatically, making viral spread far more important than message persuasiveness. Damn, that's a really good point. Yeah, message persuasiveness tends to vary only modestly, but their reach varies dramatically. So this kind of cuts against what they were saying in the previous section about the non-distinct claim being maybe even more persuasive. Evidently, FarmKind have made a massive splash with this campaign by doing the very, what would you say, like anti-vegan positioning, basically, right? That has enabled them to get a lot of media, get a lot of attention, and if it reaches 100 times as many people. I mean, some people are worried that it might be actually counterproductive, right? And the way that it's been communicated by the right-wing press, especially. But we have read some argumentation here as to why that might not be the case, right, in terms of the consistency effect as opposed to a moral licensing effect. In a survey experiment like this one, the audience is captive and sees the messages they've been assigned to read no matter what. In the real world, the hardest part is getting messages in front of people. So if an anti-vegan message spreads more virally, FarmKind could still justify H2. All that said, there is still some weak evidence against H2 and in favour of presenting veganism and donating as harmonious actions by members of the same movement, acting at different levels of commitment. I'd love to see FarmKind directly test their anti-vegan message against something that fits the tone I'm arguing for in this post, measuring both persuasiveness and virality. Yeah, it's going to be less viral, isn't it? It might be more persuasive, but it's going to be less. The problem is if FarmKind's message is actually like negative persuasive, in which case the large amount of virality becomes a liability. Had an auntie vegan once, but my uncle finally convinced her to go vegan 2.0. Based, Stephen. I love that. That's awesome. I would be buzzing if this person had watched my videos, by the way. I don't think they necessarily have, but... all that said, there's still some weak evidence against H2 and in favour of presenting veganism. Okay, we read this, right? Furthermore, some observers feel H3 renders H2 irrelevant. If the spicy messaging dissuades people from going vegan, it might not be worth it. Yeah. The Rethink survey might be even less helpful here because the message contrasting donations and diet change was so much gentler than FarmKind's real-world message. Read both messages in this footnote. But for what it's worth, the comparison message had no negative effect on people's attitudes towards going plant-based. Yeah, okay, that's probably not worth a whole lot, is it? Veganism sitrep. Why have I heard this phrase recently? Hey, Brian Research. Now for age 4, how is veganism going really? Among EA-aligned and most other professional farmed animal charities, the futility of diet change efforts is mostly taken for granted. The common story is that veganism is hovering somewhere between 1 and 4%, has not meaningfully increased in recent decades, and provokes defensiveness and resentment. Bryant Research released a report this week, commissioned by the Vegan Society, examining public attitudes towards veganism in 21 countries. The report isn't shy about looking for bright spots in global vegan trends, but the findings on rates are sobering. With the sole exception of India, where religious history and widespread poverty complicate interpretation, no country exceeded 5% veganism. Most countries were closer to 2%, including the USA, UK, Australia, and Germany. This doesn't leave much room for the possibility that the trend in these countries is positive. Instead, it supports the conclusion that vegan attrition is so high, every new vegan merely replaces one who has just relapsed. Kind of true. I mean, yeah, that's accurate, right? We were looking at this survey just a minute ago. There's India, but other than that, didn't exceed 3% in our numbers. On sentiment, however, the findings are much more encouraging. People's self-reported feelings towards vegans and veganism were both slightly positive, hovering around 4.5 on a 1 to 7 scale, where 4 is neutral, across countries from the USA to Kenya. This modestly supports the theory that anti-vegan sentiment comes mostly from a vocal minority, and that a considerable part of the public is ready to passively support the movement in a lay capacity. True. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's definitely... I don't think that most people are anti-vegan. Obviously, most people are non-vegan, but being anti-vegan is its own special breed of the male reader and GB News viewer and everything else. Is it accurate if you account for age? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. We had, well, so I was a representative samples of adults. Now, you do tend to get, I believe, higher rates of veganism amongst younger age groups. But I think one interpretation of that is that the rate of veganism could increase as those people get older and younger generations have even higher rates. But I think it's more so a time of life type of thing where people do, you know, most, as we've seen, right, most vegans do eventually give it up. Unfortunately. Isn't it great that that's not the only thing we can do? Imagine if we're just restricted to try and get everyone to go vegan. We wouldn't get very much done, would we? Imagine it's February 2027, also known as Offsetbury. Needs work. FarmKind is graciously waiting in the wings to catch every failed Veganuary participant, offering a way to retain their dignity and continue participating in the movement with a role that matches their commitment. A large and growing movement of offsetters supports and celebrates their committed vegan core through FarmKind's Adopt a Vegan program, where every monthly donation supports an advocate working on winning campaigns. What will it? I wonder, is this something they actually have, or is this something that the blog is suggesting? I know they do have some like wacky framings for their donation campaigns. Evidently, right? Famously. What will it take for us to get from here to there? I see 3 necessary changes. Number 1, vegan activists must accept that veganism is not for everyone and embrace the laity. The message from us is veganism is great, but if it's not for you, you've got to at least offset. Yeah, I think that'd be reasonable. I mean, the thing is, I know that some people will be hesitant to have any kind of fallback option. But yeah, I think we're literally leaving money on the table if we don't do that. Advocates focused on institutional change should treat vegans with the utmost regard. It should never be possible to mistake us for discouraging the exceptional people willing to sacrifice for farmed animals. The message from mainstream allies should be, I'm not vegan, but the vegans are right. Activists need to overcome their ambivalence about money. Money can be... This is so true. This is so true. I can see people being like very complacent about... or just like dismiss, money, they did it for money. Like, mate, grow up, okay? Money makes the world go round. Everything costs money. If you want people working on something full time, you need money to do it. Like, yeah, activists need to overcome their ambivalence about that. Absolutely. The movement getting more money would be a huge thing. I've been arguing a little bit in some Instagram comments about from the Patrick Grosseroff debate on whether it would be acceptable to kill one goat to quadruple the animal movement budget. Yes, it would be. Yes, we can save so many goats if we were to do that, right? It's hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, you got to take that deal. Money can be used directly to help animals, and more money means more advocacy. A large recurring donation can be much more impactful than one person going vegan, and a small one is better than nothing. True. Based, Vegan 2.0, and true. I spent 6,000 words ranting at you about the first two, but if I'm reading the responses to Forget Veganuary carefully, the third point might actually be the biggest obstacle. Interesting. About overcoming ambivalence to money. I'm ready to be animated. Yeah, I'll react to this. The strongest negative reactions to FarmKind came from vegan activists disgusted by the idea that someone could use money to pay down the moral debt created by caging and slaughtering an animal. This is the main focus of ForgetFarmKind.com. Shout out to the Forget FarmKind person who was in chat last night. A hilarious satire of the original Forget Veganuary site, which you should definitely go click through. This is genuinely confounding. On one hand, finance is the primary metaphor we use to speak about morality. We owe things to animals, we repay kindness, and criminals must pay for their crimes. But taking these metaphors literally, suggesting that someone could use money to correct their moral balance sheet, commonly provokes disgust. Monetary debt and moral debt are inconvertible, according to this understanding. This is even further complicated by the fact that most people don't abuse animals themselves, but pay someone else to do it for them. Yeah, very true. I've thought this. It is just where you're putting your money, in both cases. I'm not quite sure like how to interpret that fully, but surely this makes it much more easy to understand that actually you can put a price on a life, because you can do it by buying the animal, right? You can go and buy a whole chicken. So yes, these things are fungible, you know. The layers of this could be the subject of a dissertation, and I won't attempt to resolve it all here. I just want to confront the practical question head on. Is there any amount someone can pay you to make up for not going vegan? Yeah, really good framing. Really good framing. And I think it's an obvious yes. I think it's just obviously true. Even if you're looking at only vegan campaigning or diet change campaigning, right? Some amount of money to people doing that is going to create more than one vegan. And so, yes, yes is the answer, right? Hey, there's probably even a row in Crassal's spreadsheet here. Like, money per like the amounts that it takes to create a vegan, right? It's something that you could calculate based on these campaigns. Let's imagine someone in FarmKind's target audience. Call him Dustin. Dustin has been convinced of the moral imperative of veganism, and he is an ethical guy. He knows that he should cut out animal products and educate himself by watching vegan documentaries, but he really wants to keep eating meat, and he really doesn't want to burn horrible images into his mind. Continuing to be able to eat meat would be worth quite a lot to him. Dustin has an idea. He'll pay someone else to go vegan on his behalf, documentaries and all. By his actions, he can create one more vegan in the world, but he can keep eating meat. He thinks about this, and it feels a little bit imbalanced, so he decides he'll pay 2 other people to go vegan, which feels like it'll put him solidly in the black. He's not sure how much it will cost to pay someone to go vegan. After all, it would cost a lot to pay him to do it, but maybe other people value meat eating and documentary avoidance less than him, or value a given amount of money more, considering Dustin is relatively well off. He resolves that if he can't find anyone to go vegan for him, then he'll do it. But he posts a classified and right away finds 2 people willing to completely remove animal products from their diet and spend time learning about animal rights for a monthly fee that he can easily afford. They figure out an accountability system, Dustin happily starts paying, and the world has 2 new vegans instead of 1. This story illustrates a few things. First, I imagine people will disagree about whether something is missing here compared to a person going vegan for ethical reasons. Dustin won't undergo that vegan metamorphosis whereby he stops seeing cuts of meat as food and starts seeing them as literally part of someone's body who had to be parted from them through terrible violence. What about surrogate vegans? A solid body of research supports the idea that it's much easier to convince people of an animal rights position if they first stop eating meat for any reason. That is, behaviour change often comes before a change in beliefs rather than following from it. And on the other hand, most people who try being vegan revert even if it was for ethical reasons. So while the value of veganism can't be reduced to the animals you don't eat, it's not certain whether Dustin's strategy is less valuable to the animal movement than going vegan by himself. If we think about the likely outcomes probabilistically, then Dustin's strategy is worth at least some fraction of a normal vegan conversion. What? I'm not sure if I followed this last part. They're still talking about Dustin's beliefs here. I mean, I would just say that the 2 other vegans who now exist might go on to change the attitude. And anyway, the attitudes are not really what we care about, right? It's the impact on the animals. So if you can have a situation where all of the animal farming disappears and people still have largely speciesist views or whatever, like we only care about the speciesist views because they're going to be upstream of actual knives in throats, not for their own sake, right? Setting that aside for a moment, the story also illustrates how money works. Money is kind of magical. It can transform almost anything anyone values into almost anything else. Medieval alchemists spent their lives trying to turn lead into gold, but money can already do that. By denominating a market price for lead and for gold in the same currency, you can sell your lead and buy an equivalent value's worth of gold. True. Never thought about that. But would you volunteer to be that one goat? Hell no. Sucks if you're the one goat, for sure. Sucks if you're the one goat. It'd be great if government would offer up a voucher incentive to people who choose to go vegan, like $1,000 a month, or that goes towards groceries. That would be great. I wouldn't hold your breath. Not for now. Reposted with corrected donations. Real Veganuary value versus FarmKind is 255 times. This can be orders of magnitude higher when we talk about how qualities is decided. Damn. Okay, crass out. I really appreciate that. I'm definitely gonna take a look at that Google sheet afterwards. My thoughts on it is, I want to say that people are going to be weird about the counterfactuals of more donations to those campaigns at this point, given that they already exist. I didn't express that very well, but I think it's like a scalability thing, right? Like, it's not a given that doubling Veganuary's funding would double Veganuary participation, for example. But what you've described sounds pretty compelling. I'll definitely have a look at it. Money can also do this with valuable things that are not tangible, allowing Dustin to create the value of his moral obligations against his strong desire to eat meat. Well, what really makes money incredible is his ability to seek out the lowest cost way to achieve a given value. True, true, true. This is like, we've needed economists in the movement for a long time, like business people. I think these guys are going to achieve a lot. This is very true, and it's also very like brave, given how important it is for people in the middle of the animal meat movement to be vegan and to respect veganism and be, reverent of being vegan. There's a high social cost, as we're seeing, for people in the animal movement to say anything bad about veganism. But yeah, it's just a relatively high cost way of helping relatively few animals. In this case, Dustin saw going vegan as a very large sacrifice, and the price he reached in his own mind for what was worth to him was much bigger than for some other people. Thanks to the magical powers of money, Dustin's conscience was able to search across the world for the most cost-effective ways to increase total veganism, getting 2 vegans instead of 1. Money cannot convert all forms of value. For instance, the discovery that money can't buy love is popularly attributed to Paul McCartney. Some of the most important things in the world are not convertible to money. But this shouldn't be a starting principle. If there's something you want and you have money, there's no good reason not to ask if money can help you get it. If money can't help, then so be it. But if it can, it can. For proof of both of these points, let's come back to the real world Dustin. His name is Dustin Moskovitz. I suspected this was a real person. Here we go. After co-founding Facebook and becoming history's youngest self-made billionaire, Moskovitz founded Open Philanthropy, now Coefficient Giving. Through CG, Moskovitz may be the single largest donor to farmed animal advocacy and meat replacement in history. And he's not even vegetarian. Wow. That's big if true, right? That's pretty based. That's a cool example. When I've met a couple of times some of the movement's big funders who are, worthy of all my love and appreciation. I always tell them I appreciate what you do. You don't have to give your money to this cause, and you choose to do it, and that's very, very commendable and good for you. Yeah, I've given that speech to probably at least 2 billionaires. But we don't have enough of them. Never to Moskovitz, but, I would if I met him. And what I don't do is ask them if they're vegan. I don't say, thanks for the millions in funding for the movement, but did you check that croissant for fucking milk? I went to dinner with the guy who is pioneering cultivated meat years ago, about 10 years ago, more. And he had a big old fucking lamb shank for dinner. And I thought, well, this guy's probably going to be pretty pivotal in ending animals' use for food. So, not going to say too much about it. Most people can't donate hundreds of millions of dollars, but also most people aren't going vegan. Is asking people who won't go vegan to make a donation better than nothing? The donation could even be used for vegan advocacy. My friend Tyan Hughes was an experienced door-to-door fundraiser for large charities like Amnesty International when he joined the Colorado chapter of Pro Animal Future as a volunteer. Pro Animal Future had never bothered with these kinds of fundraising strategies, and when Tainan asked if he could start knocking on doors, I didn't think much of it, and kept postponing our meeting. Finally, he just started doing it on his own. He quickly started pulling in hundreds of dollars per hour, and soon Pro Animal Futures hired him as a canvasser for $30 an hour. Pro Animal Futures uses that money for political campaigns, but it could be used for anything. Another organisation paying a canvasser $30 an hour to knock on doors and raise $100 an hour could use the remainder to pay 2 other people to go door-to-door vegan advocacy. In that case, wouldn't the offsets be creating more of what we care about? That is a great example. That's such a good example. Yeah. If you can get someone out there doing the door knocking and making vegans, but you can get someone out there doing the door knocking, creating 2 more door knockers, then you probably want to do more of the high earning ones so that you can increase long term the amount of vegan advocates. That's so good. I'm going to make a note of this. Oh, this blog's nailing it. This person's very on the money. More donations doesn't necessarily equal more animals saved. With them being more efficient help this, comparing 2025 to 2023, they received 1.23 times more funding but helped 3.7 times more animals. Donation impact is diminishing. Fair play, fair play, fair play. It's getting better at saving animals for $1. Well, I mean, yeah. That is pretty banging. I'm looking forward to looking at that when I finish stream. It's in my Discord, is it? Nice, thank you. Nice, nice, nice. Pretty big if true. I'm gonna look forward to getting into that. I'll have to think about the model is the main thing. I trust your numbers. I just got to think if there's anything that's like conceptually, you know, how they fit together. Animal liberation offsets now. Hey guys, we're most of the way through. I think we are going to finish this, you know. Oh, look at that. We're nearly finished. All right, this is the last section, I guess. Hey, well done us. Animal liberation offsets now. Sandcastle's readers will be familiar with the idea that all strategic disputes reduce to a disagreement about timelines. That is, how far along we are in the history of our movement. Tom used this idea to explain the Forget Veganuary campaign. Yep, we remember this on David Rams. We share the same ultimate goal, which is to end the exploitation of animals by humans. The question is, where are we in that journey? Reasonable people can disagree about this. I think, sadly, we're probably a really long way from it. In that context, the tools that make sense to us are quite different than if we were much closer to the end. We're in an environment where eating meat is normal. Most people think of it as the default, our best evidence suggests. The current strategies people have developed on this aren't having the overall societal impacts that we'd like to see. So if that's not where we are, if we can't solve that problem right now, can we get people to take some more positive actions right now? That's why we think offsetting makes sense. Yes, there's no amount of money you can pay to make that pig or chicken alive again and give them a good life. But in the aggregate, you can prevent the next chicken from being stuck in a cage all their life. You can prevent the next pig from having his teeth removed without anaesthetic. You can prevent the next 1,000 shrimp from being killed without stunning or having their eye stalks crushed. But I actually think offsets make sense in short timeline worlds too. If you think the path to victory will involve political campaigns, corporate pressure campaigns, alt protein R&D, or anything other than directly linearly increasing the number of vegans, well, all of those cost money. If just 0.3% of the US population offset at the modest rate FarmKind recommends, It would double the global farmed animal movement's budget. If there are as many offsetters as vegans in the United States alone, our collective budget would 3 to 7x. It's time we start accepting arms. Beg on. Well, that's pretty crazy numbers. I was doing a little bit of back of the envelope calculations for these figures for the UK and finding, similarly modest numbers of people could result in, doubling, tripling the total animal movement's budget, which I don't know why people don't find that compelling, right? Quadrupling the animal movement's budget, that means we're going to have 4 times as much shit going on. Right? That's huge. That's huge. It would be a game changer. It would be many, many, many animals saved. We need to not take that for granted and not see money as necessarily bad or like somehow incompatible with what we're trying to do in terms of morality. We need to let the impact of that land. If we can multiply the resources going into the movement, it's obviously a good thing, right? We can multiply what we can then do for animals. Right. All right. Well, that was a good read. I really like this. This was the second good blog that we've read from Aidan on this topic. Three soul-meltingly hot takes for animal activists in 2026. Well, we might have to read more of this guy in the future, I think, huh? What do you think? Should we watch Natalie Fulton? I need a like wait screen, a save screen. So that I can break during stream and come back.
In 2009, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association released the Masters of Beef Advocacy Program. It's designed to give people the knowledge and skills they need to advocate for the beef industry. At least, that's what they say. According to The Guardian, this program is a propaganda machine designed to spread disinformation and deny the scientific evidence surrounding beef and climate change. I'm Natalie, an animal rights advocate, and today I'm going undercover to see if this is a legitimate course or a meat industry scam. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association even has a digital command center in Denver where they use sophisticated software to comb the internet for more than 200 beef-related topics. Of course, we will be stopping by. I'm filling out the application now, and yes, I was also surprised they were...
That's the Colorado thing I was thinking of. When was I looking for that? Was that in a debate where I was casting around for... the Colorado Misinformation Center? It was sometime on stream. Natalie knows what's up.
Require an application. I'm putting my real name just to see how much they vet these applications. If they Google me, they'll see that I'm working on a campaign to ban slaughterhouses, but I have a feeling they'll let anyone in. Reason for joining: to expose this program as a fraud. I mean, because I love beef and think everyone should eat it all the time. I woke up to a very exciting email. I've been officially accepted to the Masters of Beef Advocacy Program. I guess they don't really vet their applicants very much at all. Before we dive into this course, it's important to understand who the National Cattlemen's Beef Association actually is. This is Crystal Heath, an animal rights advocate, veterinarian, and graduate of UC Davis.
The National Cattlemen's Beef Association is contracted by the National Cattlemen's Beef Board, and this is a checkoff program, and it's for marketing and promotion efforts and research on how do we increase demand.
Basically, ranchers have to pay $1 per head of cattle to the beef checkoff, who uses that money to promote beef, so ranchers don't have to worry about marketing or advertising. The crazy part is that it's actually part of the government under the USDA. So
this is a bit like the AHDB. Levies on farmers, and then part of that is used to promote meat. And yeah, I believe it's also like pseudo government in the UK. We've done debunks of AHDB research reports before. They're literally just meat industry propaganda, same as this.
Government is actively trying to increase demand for beef, but people still say that veganism is propaganda. All right, it's time for lesson 1, the beef community.
Once you complete all 5 lessons of this self-guided course, you will be given access to an expanded library of continuing education content and be invited to join an exclusive community of beef advocates from across the country, sharing your beef stories.
The basic premise of this course is that consumers are confused about beef and they want to learn more.
Many consumers today have very little understanding of how beef gets from the pasture to their plate, and they want to know more.
I genuinely don't know who they're talking about. Even when I ate beef, I wasn't wandering around the grocery store wondering about how they raise cattle on grass. And who are the beef advocates that they're training? Is this why social media has become inundated with carnivore dieters?
Yes. I mean, yeah, that is all, I don't want to say all, but to some extent funded by these kind of initiatives. Some mugs are doing it for free. Right, some of these carnivore people aren't even getting paid. They didn't realize that this was meant to be a paid program at the start. They got tricked into thinking it was actually a thing.
Call out Meatless Monday and Veganuary for making false claims about the environmental impact of beef. I was hoping there would be some studies about how beef isn't bad for the environment they could point to. However, I was assured that when you talk to people, as long as you acknowledge their concerns, you don't actually have to provide counter evidence.
One way you can bridge the gap between questions stemming from emotion and responses based in science is to allow the 2 C's to guide your conversation on any subject. We care about the same issues you do or understand your concerns. We are capable of meeting your expectations and addressing your concerns.
The rest of this module is just them bringing up issues and then saying that they care and are capable. When discussing animal care, they don't talk about slaughterhouses, they just repeat the 2 C's. Their quizzes.
Interesting. You should look out for these patterns of communication for people that you encounter and that you argue with. This is kind of slightly before straight up copy pasting AI output into comments, right? They used to have to kind of educate people on how to be misleading, but now they don't even need to do that.
Throughout the module, and I wanted to just let it play and do something else, but it's too interactive, so you have to click on the screen about every 30 seconds. It's a bit frustrating that their communication techniques actually do work. It's true that people aren't persuaded by data or debates, but I think the 2 C's only work for them because eating meat is the status quo. If vegans were trying to get a university to adopt a plant-based food system and someone brought up health concerns and the vegans just said, we care about health too, and we're capable of making sure that you get all the nutrients you need, no one would take that seriously. They'd have to provide evidence, like nutrition groups who said it's healthy, and studies that show thriving vegan populations. But the meat industry doesn't have to do that because people don't like change. That was supposed to only take 30 minutes, but it took over an hour, and most of the time they were just repeating themselves. I'm not looking forward to Module 2. In addition to the online course, there are fact sheets and resources you can download. They even have a Beef It's What's for Dinner coloring book. Let's see what the Beef Board teaches children. The families that raise cattle take good care of the land and water. They use crops, trucks, tractors, and horses to help raise healthy beef. You can see how they objectify animals by not referring to them as animals, but by calling them beef. They don't see them as individuals.
I think a lot of people who do this for a living are not just like not bothered, just genuinely don't care. But I wonder if there are some self-aware people who are like, fucking hell, I'm literally making a propaganda colouring book to convince kids that it's okay to stab animals. Like, there must be quite an existence if you're self-aware in that scenario.
They see them as products to be sold. For anyone who's not vegan watching, probably most of you, the main idea of veganism is that you object to the idea that animals are objects. There's also a Chuck Knows Beef word search with words like protein and healthy. Wait a second. What the hell is Chuck Knows Beef?
Meet Chuck Knows Beef. He's the artificial intelligence that knows all things beef.
Uh-oh.
And he's been busy at chuckknowsbeef.com.
Chuck, do you have any vegetarian recipes?
All of our beef dishes are made with 100% vegetarian cows.
Why am I doing this again? Okay, back to the course. There's a history lesson.
There's just some top-tier Carnus banter, that. That is brilliant.
About the Homestead Act, which allowed ranchers to claim public land to graze their cattle and led to the rapid expansion of the West. However, the course leaves out some important parts. They briefly mention that bison used to graze in the plains, but don't explain where they went. After the Civil War, ranchers wanted to expand west, but they faced two obstacles. The first was bison, who competed with cattle for grass, as well as destroyed the fences that ranchers put up. The second obstacle was the people, those pesky Native Americans. But many Native Americans relied on buffalo for everything: food, clothing, and commerce. So the US Army found a way to kill two birds with one stone. I mean, feed two birds with one scone. They killed the bison, which starved the Native Americans, and this allowed ranchers to take over the land for themselves. It's so weird that the course didn't cover that. One of the ways the beef industry says that cattle are sustainable is by comparing them to bison. They say that we've always had large herbivores roaming the earth, so methane can't really be a concern now.
Back in the 1500s, we had 30 to 60 million bison roaming the North American plains. After the mass killing by humans, their numbers dropped to just 325. And today, there are 500,000 bison. Okay, so like their numbers dropped, but we have 87.2 million domestic cows in the US. And so they are producing a lot more greenhouse gas emissions, a lot more methane than the bison did, because most of these cows are younger, they're in their growth cycle.
When I got to the next section on
Also, of course, there's nothing to say that like the number of naturally occurring bison couldn't be problematic from a climate change perspective. It could easily be the case that the climate is still going to, pardon me, that that's still going to make the climate change beyond acceptable range to humans. You know, the climate was, you know, we had ice ages and everything before we were making greenhouse gases, didn't we? Struggling to understand why anyone would want to advocate for people eating even more meat when they saw zero concerns with it. Well, if you're getting paid by industry, basically, that's the answer, Percy, if you're getting paid by industry.
sustainability in the MBA course, they actually did provide statistics about how the industry is improving. But the most important statistic I learned is that 94% of beef farmers say that protecting natural resources is important to them. As long as they say it's important, why would we bother looking into it? We definitely don't need to look into this report from the IPCC that says beef is the single food with the greatest impact on the environment. The main problem with beef is its inefficiency. Even though the industry has become more efficient over time, that doesn't solve the issues with beef production. The amount of land it takes to raise cattle is astronomical, about 100 times more than plant-based foods. Even when you adjust for protein, the numbers are shocking. For every 100 grams of protein fed to cows, we only get 3.8 grams back. Even if the beef industry quadruples their efficiency, we'd still squander food and land raising cattle. And that's what the industry will will never acknowledge that there's a biological limit to how far they can push these animals. But luckily, the industry has another idea in Module 5.
One of the greatest opportunities for improvement regarding sustainability is a reduction of food waste. Working together, consumers and the beef community can work toward improving not only beef sustainability, but full-scale sustainability as well.
The industries that profit from polluting our planet love to place the responsibility onto consumers to take it off of themselves. We've seen this with fossil fuels companies literally creating the concept of a carbon footprint. I'd love to...
I'm a bit skeptical of that, because I don't think that the industries want people to think, okay, it's my responsibility to consume less of this, right? I often think it's the other way around, where people are like, well, we can't really do anything individually because the industry, right? The industry's so big, the industry's going to not allow it, or do marketing or do propaganda. Or something. It's like both sides kind of trying to say is the other side's responsibility for rather than their own. But yeah, I mean, it is true that it is ultimately consumer driven, right? And if it wasn't them doing it, it'd be someone else.
To tell you more about the course, but honestly, there's not
for the producer's side, not for the consumer's side.
Not much to tell. Every single module has a section on sustainability and animal care, but they just say that they're always improving and care about the animals and the planet. Throughout this whole course, I had one burning question that I wanted to ask Crystal.
Do you think that they know that they're evil, or is it something they've deluded themselves into thinking they're genuinely helping the world?
I think deluded, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Feeding people. What do you think?
I genuinely feel like they feel like they're doing a difficult but necessary job to ensure food security in the world. I do think the vast majority of people feel that way, and they're ignoring any evidence to the contrary as just vegan propaganda.
Throughout this course, you can see how they continue to discount vegans.
Anti-animal agriculture interest groups commonly distort antibiotic use figures.
Many consumers may associate feed yards with negative perceptions of factory farming, perpetuated by animal rights interest groups.
Their resentment toward animal advocates has been building for over a century.
Animal rights interest groups. How are you going to make that sound like you guys are funded by Big Cow? Like, where do you think any money is coming from in this situation? There's like an implication that there's some sort of corrupt, dishonorable interest groups. It's just like, come on. They could have said charities, huh?
In 1906, Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle,
This must have been infuriating to go through this whole course, by the way. Props to Natalie.
sensationalized these concerns, and meat sales dropped dramatically.
Of course, this program wouldn't be complete without a section on nutrition, and yes, it's exactly what you would expect.
Some consumers point out that you do not have to eat meat to get protein. While this is true, it is much harder to get adequate high-quality protein and other essential nutrients, especially without overeating calories, if you're not eating meat.
This is where I actually do recognize some carnivore talking points, because they compare the amount of protein in beef to quinoa and peanut butter, which is something I've seen people do online.
Yeah. They love doing. Yeah, you see all those reels that Danny Ishii reacts to, huh? It's no wonder they have had such consistent sets of talking points now seeing this. I mean, we need the equivalent. We need the equivalent. Some PR agency to come and educate us all exactly what to say. I don't know.
After about 5 hours of sitting through beef industry propaganda, I was very ready to be done with this course. I'm so excited to share that I finally graduated, and one of my friends asked me if the course was as bad as you would expect. And the answer is complicated. It's not like I didn't learn anything. I learned that 20% of beef comes from dairy cows. I learned different industry terms that I'm sure will be useful in the future. And, well, I guess that's about it. While the content is not strong, I do have to give them credit for how well designed the course was. I liked that it was easy to follow. I liked that it was interactive. It's by no means the worst online course I've ever taken. I've taken a lot of bad online courses, and I really got the sense that people in the beef community are proud of what they do, and I appreciate that. I wish they were doing something else, but hey, maybe they will one day. As far as the Facebook group, it's worse than I expected. I was hoping to see the origins of carnivore talking points. I was hoping to find Steak and Butter Gal in here, but like a lot of Facebook these days, it appears to just be one guy shouting into the void. To celebrate my graduation, we're gonna go visit the NCBA headquarters in Denver. Justin, what do you think about beef?
So what's for dinner?
All right, so we're here at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. I think we're just gonna walk in and like see if they kick us out. Do you think I should wear my Pro Animal Future hoodie?
No.
Hey, we know about Pro Animal Future. We know that. We just read that in the blog.
I've done like disruptions and stuff before.
Okay. I'm piecing this together now. I've seen Natalie talking about this group before.
But this is a lot scarier. Hey, how y'all doing? Good. I was hoping to get an interview from someone about the beef advocacy program. Would either of you be available?
No, but I think probably help find somebody to help you with it.
Hey, how's it going? Good. My name is Natalie, and I just finished the MBA course, and I just wanted to see if I could interview someone about it, about the course, or something like that.
Most of that MBA group travels.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we'd have to probably set up a meeting for you to meet with them.
Could we check out the command center?
No, it's not. It's funny, Fridays are hard.
After giving them my email to set up an interview, we wandered around the building. Everything online said it should look like a military complex with high-tech computers, but it was actually just a ghost town. For a place that claims to be, working 24/7, it seems like it's a bit dead. Well, no one wanted to do an interview. So.
That's kind of interesting. I wonder if it is a lot of Friday. People didn't come into the office on Friday and everyone works from home now. Or I thought at the time when I saw all that news coverage, I wonder how much of this is overblown by the industry to exaggerate the extent of it and to demoralize our side, right? Because, yeah, they do. They paint a picture of, banks and of multiple screens and high tech, hundreds of people going around, but it doesn't really seem to be the case. I mean, they've got a lot of space here, right?
Around the building. Everything online said it should look like a military complex with high-tech computers, but it was actually just a ghost town. For a place that claims to be, working 24/7, it seems like it's a bit dead. Well, no one wanted to do an interview, so I guess we're gonna get out of here. Do you want to become a beef advocate one day?
Yeah.
All right, so something bad just happened. When we got back from the command center, I went to the Masters of Beef course and I tried to log in, and my password wasn't working. It was working right before we left. They also kicked me out of the exclusive Facebook group.
No way.
I don't know if I'm a Masters of Beef advocate anymore. I guess by going there and giving them my name, they Googled me and figured out who I was and decided to kick me out. Maybe I need to change the title of this video to I got kicked out of the Masters of Beef advocacy program. Thanks for watching today, and if you want to help us win the fight against big meat, donate to my Patreon or join Pro Animal Future.
That's quite funny. They actually didn't want her to. They actually didn't want her exposing that. Hey?
Otherwise, I will see you next time.
That's quite funny. That's really well done. I appreciated that from Natalie. I'm glad I watched that one. Right, guys. I'm going to call it there. I will be dropping this week an exclusive interview with a Veganuary co-founder speaking about the farm kind stuff. I recorded it on Sunday It's a very good interview, by the way. I'm very proud of it, and I think it's going to do numbers for the channel. So if you're here in, you know, in the days of 8 viewer Andy, then remember it. Remember, you knew me before I got famous. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be good, though. It's going to be good. Right, guys. Thanks for watching. Yeah, it's going to be good there. The interview's going to be banging. It'll drop this week, almost certainly, I would say. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you soon. I'll be posting more shorts tomorrow. I'll drop the interview this week, and I will probably stream again sometime soon. But yeah, I appreciate you guys being here, doing the long read with me, putting in the hours. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you soon. Take it easy, guys.